All right, guys, this is the Urtopia Carbon Fusion Pro, and the word carbon comes from this frame, which is fully carbon fiber. Now, with this range extender you see in the frame, they say this bike can get up to 120 miles on a single charge, but here's the kicker. This e-bike only weighs 48 pounds. So if you thought that sounds interesting, I did as well. So let's do a deep dive on the specs, features, and go out for a ride in this review of the Urtopia Carbon Fusion Pro. All right, so let's talk about the basic overview of the Urtopia Carbon Fusion Pro. Now, this is a Class 2 e-bike that ships as a Class 2, but can be unlocked to Class 3 with a top speed of 25 miles an hour, and it's done so in the display with just a couple taps of a few buttons, and it's very quick and easy. Now, on top of that, you do have a throttle on here, and this bike is both UL 2849 and UL 2271 certified. Now, they say the bike weighs about 48 pounds, like I said in the intro, but Urtopia clarifies that's with no fenders and no rear rack. But with the fenders and rear rack, I threw it up on a scale just to see how far off we would be. And it was only 51 pounds the way you see it right now. And this is an optional accessory, and so is this. So if you took these off, you really would be at that 48-pound e-bike. It's pretty impressive lightweight numbers for an e-bike these days, which means lots of extra just creature comforts for you. If you buy one, you can actually put it on most bike racks. It's gonna be easier to take upstairs, downstairs, move it in and out of storage, put in the back of a truck, take out of a truck. Things like that just become a whole lot easier when the bike is sub 50 pounds like this one is. Now they say, now this comes in 4 colors. This is the blue, but they also have a gray, a orange, and a black color as well. And they all have this two-tone carbon fiber with the colored accent kind of overall look. Now, this is a one size fits most step-through frame, and that most range is from 5'3" up to 6'3", and I'm 5'11", and I really thought this bike fit me like a glove. It fit me really well. I don't always get to say that about bikes. Sometimes you kind of have to force yourself into them and mess with the adjustable stem to get it to fit right, but this one just felt really good, really quick, and that's not always the case, which was nice to see. Now, some geometry numbers for this frame. Our wheelbase from front to rear hub or vice versa is going to be 46 inches. You have 5 inches of adjustability in the seat post here. You have a 15-inch reach, but I say that with the caveat that that can be more or less because we have an adjustable 60-degree stem up top. And then our max payload on this is 330 pounds, and the lowest entry point at the standover height here is at 19 inches, so that makes it a lot easier getting on and off without that whole leg throw over process that you get on more of a high top tube bike. Now, this bike has 29-inch wheels, which we don't always see. I'm not sure why, but we usually see a lot of 27.5s or 26s. But this is a true 29er. 29er tires just tend to roll over things a little bit better. They're kind of easier to get around, easier to maintain speed. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know the physics behind it, but 29ers just happen to be a little bit more fun to play with when you're riding a bike. But we have a 29-inch alloy wheel here, and it's wrapped in a 29 by basically 2-inch or 2.05-inch wide tire, and it's a Kenda, kind of a mild all-terrain / commuter tire for a little bit of knobbies, but they're nothing aggressive like super off-roady, but they're there just to give you some varied traction and varied terrain type situations. This bike comes with front to back lighting. You've got a 40 lux headlight up front and a taillight on the rear fender. And in addition to that, it comes with alloy fenders, both front and back. Those are going to kind of help keep water off of you and from spraying everybody when you go by them. They'll kind of just get caught in the fenders and make your life a little bit easier on those rainy rides. And then in terms of extra accessories, we have 2 water bottle mounting cage points right here. This is an optional range extender, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But if we didn't have this, which the bike doesn't come with it, it's an optional accessory. Right here, you have 2 mounting points for a water bottle cage and another 2 on the down tube here that will also let you put another water bottle or maybe some sort of accessory you want to add in. In terms of the rear rack, this is also an optional. It doesn't come with a rear rack or a front rack. There's no mounting point for a front rack. The only one you have is here for the rear rack, and they sell an MIK rear rack or a MIK rear rack, and these keep gear nice and secure. They interface with a lot of different accessories that secure to these rear racks, and this rear rack has a rating of 55 pounds. All right, so let's talk about the muscle behind the Urtopia Carbon Fusion Pro. So we've got a 500 watt rear hub motor, but it can peak at up to 1,000 watts, essentially doubling its power in peak conditions. and it pumps out 60 Newton meters of torque. Now that combination on a bike that only weighs 60 pounds is a really solid combination. It is torque sensor activated, so you've got a nice natural pedaling assistance feel. But I will say the torque sensor on this bike, because all torque sensors are kind of programmed differently, this one's got a bit of a split personality. When you're in the lower PAS levels like PAS 1, 2, and 3, or Eco, Tour, and Turbo, the pedal assistance feels very intuitive to how you're pedaling. So as I increase speed and pressure, it automatically increases speed of the bike just like you'd want. And when I back off and pedal very lightly, it goes very lightly as well. So it's really responsive and natural feeling in the first few PAS levels. But when you go to boost mode, it kind of just feels like a cadence sensor at that point. As soon as you start turning the pedals, you're just off and running. Now, for some people, that's gonna be awesome. For some people, it's not. It just depends on what you like out of your e-bike. I thought it was kind of nice because when I'm in the lower PAS levels, I probably am more focused on how I'm pedaling and more natural riding feel. But when you go into boost mode, you want to go fast, and that's kind of how it feels like. Now, it doesn't come with a cadence sensor. It is a torque sensor. Just on that last boost mode, it just feels like a cadence sensor because it's kind of all or nothing power, which again, I think kind of fits the overall boost mode. But all the other pedal assistance levels, Eco, Tour, Turbo, they all feel very natural and responsive with the torque sensor, the way it's programmed as it is. Now, this bike ships at 20 miles an hour with a throttle up top. And so that means pedal assistance and throttle are limited to 20, but in the display, you can go in there, hit a couple buttons. I'll show you in just a second how to do so. And that will let you unlock it to 25 miles an hour. So this is not a full class 3 at 28, but it does get up to 25 and it feels very fast when you're on it. It's just not going to hit that actual 28 number, with 25 being the max speed. Now, in terms of the battery, we have a fully integrated battery here, and it's running on a 36-volt system. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to take this battery out. It does come with a set of keys, so I'll show you how to take the battery out. So the keys go in the drive side here, and it will halfway drop it. When I turn that key, it doesn't fully drop out. There's actually a safety latch that you need to depress to make sure the battery can come all the way out. And then you get your 36-volt UL 2271 certified battery. It's also got an external power gauge meter on it where you can tap the button and get a little green light indicator of where the battery's charge level is at. Now, this is 529 watt hours, 14.7 amp hours, and 36 volts. Now, they say this combination of battery and motor will get us up to 75 miles on a single charge. But you see this here, this is their range extender that you can buy optionally. And that takes the range, what they say, up to 120 miles. So you've got quite a bit of range potential in this bike, and I'll talk about in just a second how much range I got in my real world testing. But so far the claims are between these two systems up to 120 miles, and if you stick with just the factory battery and no extender, up to 75 miles. Now, when I did a range test on this, I got 54 miles on minimum assistance, so not up to 75 like claimed, and I'm about 185 pounds on a relatively flat course, about maybe 600-700 feet of elevation total climbed on those rides. So I didn't quite get 75 miles. And then on maximum mode, so basically in boost mode the whole way, I got 34 miles. So I was able to reasonably get between roughly 35 and 55 miles. But if you use the range extender like they offer, in theory, I should be able to get upwards of about 100 miles, at least based on my actual testing with this specific bike. But nonetheless, between 34 miles going full blast and 50-ish miles going on minimum assistance on eco mode, it's still quite a bit of range for most people to get all their daily stuff done for even for a couple days before needing a recharge. And then you have the option for a range extender if you need it. Now, to put this back, you'll simply drop the bottom in first, and it clicks right into place and kind of auto locks when it snaps back in. This battery and the bike has a 2-year warranty with a 21-day trial period as well. All right, so let's talk about the drivetrain and group set on the Urtopia Carbon Fusion Pro. So back here, we've got an 8-speed Shimano setup, and it's run on a Shimano Acera 8-speed rear derailleur that also has an 11-40 rear cassette and a 44-tooth chainring up front. Now, the chainring has a single-sided chain guard, and the cranks are 170 millimeter alloy cranks, and it comes with its own Urtopia branded flat plastic pedals that do have some traction studs and reflectors for visibility. The braking on here is covered by Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, and these are 180 millimeter rotors, both front and back, with a thickness of 1.8 millimeters, and the calipers are 2 piston calipers, both front and rear. The braking was really good on this bike. Again, it's a 50-pound bike, so hydraulic disc brakes on a 50-pound bike just work really, really well, and they don't need to be beefed up in this situation. That's just right where it should be. Now, in terms of the saddle here, we have this Urtopia memory foam saddle. It's called their Comfort Plus. It does have a little grip handle on the bottom side. It's not super wide. It's got a nice sleek look to it. And right here you have 5 inches of adjustability in the alloy seat post. Now, normally we have a quick release lever to bring seat posts up and down, but this one uses an Allen key. It looks like a 4 or 6 millimeter just based off glancing at it. And that is how you're gonna need to lower or raise the seat. So something to keep in mind. It's not gonna be easily raised or lowered while you're out on a ride. So get that seat dialed in before you leave the house, unless you carry a little bike tool with you, which will have that right Allen key on it, probably just on its own. Now up front, we have an 80 millimeter suspension fork. It's got 80 mils of travel. It also has a lockout feature. If I twist this here, I can lock it out and prevent it from dipping at all. And then I can unlock it with just as easily of a push of the button. And there's also a preload feature on the side as well. Now up here in the front, we have the handlebar, which is 740 millimeters wide, or about 29 inches. We have Tektronix alloy disc brake levers on both sides, and they do have adjustable reach Allen head keys here. You can turn those, and that will adjust that reach lever inward or outward based on which way you turn it for however long your fingers are to what's a comfortable reach for your hand. They also have engine cutoff sensors, so if the motor's running, throttle, pedal assist, and you in a panic hit the brakes, it's going to automatically kill power to that motor just as a safety precaution. Here on the rest of the cockpit area, we do have lock-on ergonomic rubber grips. I like lock-ons because they don't slide or rotate while you're riding. You have a Shimano trigger shifter with window here to see all 8 speeds, which gear you're in at the time. And on the left here, we have this bell, which you can see the bell has like this little thumb throttle style look to it, which is interesting because on the right side, we have the actual throttle that looks very similar. And I've found myself a couple times without thinking pushing the bell when I thought I was pushing the throttle. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But other than that, it's a very clean setup. The alloy bar has a nice rise. The cable management is pretty non-existent because we have cables going directly into the headset and then down through the bike for the rest of the way, which gives it a nice clean look up front. And then the stem is 60 degrees adjustable. So based on how you like your reach to be, you want to reach further out and move more forward, or you want to bring it further in and be more upright and relaxed, you can make those changes here to dial in a better fit and just a better ride comfort for you. But let's take a closer look at this display and talk about what you can do in the Urtopia display. All right, so this is the home screen on the Urtopia Carbon Fusion Pro. It's a pretty clean set-in design with this kind of unique style stem that they have, which is adjustable. And there's no buttons except for the very top here for a power button, no USB ports to mess with. And all your controls are gonna be on the left-hand side of the cockpit with your control pad buttons. So right now at the home screen layout, we have the headlight indicator because the headlight is currently on. We have the time of day up top. We have a battery bar and a 5-bar meter and a battery in numerical percentages. And then on the both right and left side, we have our rotations kind of dynamically. Cadence will show up here on the left. And then motor power will dynamically show on the right as assistance is going. And then here in the center bottom below the speed, we have a cadence RPM number that as we pedal will show us a number like what our cadence is, so roughly somewhere between about 65 and 90 for most people. And if you track that, that's a nice metric to have. Now if you want to see some other metrics aside from the speed here and that cadence, you can tap the M button and that will take you to these data screens. So you have your trip distance and odometer, average speed and max speed. Tapping it again, you can see your motor power, average and max. And your power analysis, this is basically how much time you're using the motor versus how much time you're doing the effort. And right now the bike, for the 120 miles we put on it, has about a split of around 60 to 40%, 60% being motor power, 40% being the human rider. Tapping it again takes you back to the home screen. Now if you want to get into advanced settings and change things like speed units from kilometers to miles an hour, things like that, you can hold the M button and that will take us into these advanced settings. Now, toggling down, you can reset the trip meter if you want to. You can set a password upon startup to prevent unauthorized access or someone using it that doesn't know the password. You can reset the time, and here you can change the units. So you've got imperial and metric. Here is your brightness, so it's on level 3 right now. And here you can change how long the bike takes to power off automatically once you walk away and stop using it. It'll kind of start a countdown, and anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes you can set it to in those increments to turn off on its own, or you can turn that feature all the way off and it will just stay on whenever you walk away. But I like to leave that on just so I don't kill the battery and leave it on all the time. Now eBike info is going to have some important information. Here you can go into your speed limitation, and as you can see, you can set it between 25 as low as 15, so anywhere on that 15 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. So we'll take that back up to 25, leave it there. Here, if you had a different size wheel, you could change that diameter, but I would not touch that unless you were directed to, or you did have, you know, a different sized wheel on here. Battery info is going to give you state of charge, voltage, capacity, and how many cycles. And state of charge 100% hardware version and firmware version. Controller information, kind of the same thing. You get the hardware and the firmware number. And display is going to be similar as well, but you also get a serial code. And that takes you through everything on the display. It's pretty straightforward, but as you can see, it's easy to navigate and it's easy to kind of get what you need done and back out and be on your way. All right, we're out here on Urtopia's Carbon Fusion Pro. This is where we kind of just go for a ride and talk about how it feels, how the motor feels, how the brakes feel, any mystery rattles or sounds. And so when you get on this, I always start with how bikes feel and the fit. And this is probably, maybe it's because of the adjustable stem where it brought the hands, I have my hands kind of in what feels for me like a perfect position. It's a really like intuitive, comfortable seating position that matches at least my frame pretty well. It's a really relaxed, upright position, but you can bring that stem down and lean forward more if you want to. But if you want to treat it more like a city cruiser and be upright and relaxed, which is how I have it now, with that stem angled up, it's really, really comfortable, and it makes the reach nice and short. Just a very kind of naturally comfortable ride with a good ergonomic position, at least for my body. I'm 5'11", 180, so if you're around that, I would expect you could probably get the same results, which just feels really comfortable, to be honest. So part of that is attributed to some of the extra comfort features. So we've got these ergonomic rubber platform grips to rest my hand on. We've got the suspension fork up front with 60 millimeters of travel. And then we've got commuter tires. The saddle is fine, it's comfortable, but it's not like oversized or plush or anything like that where you're gonna have a really comfortable or like really cushy seat. It's a pretty standard bike saddle. So I'm not gonna add that to the comfort area, but it's not uncomfortable, so I can't really deduct points either. But the ergonomic grips, the riding position, and that suspension fork with the smooth commuter tires, it's a really sleek, quiet, kind of enjoyable ride. Another thing I notice on here is the pedal assist. So it's got a torque sensor. Pedal assist is really nice, really natural, but it's got two, almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde split personality. So on the low end, it's very reserved. It feels good. Eco mode is actually usable. Like right now I'm in eco mode and I'm not out of breath. I'm going 13 miles an hour. It feels really nice. But when I go up to like boost, turbo, just rotating the pedals, it feels now like a cadence sensor. It doesn't feel like it's reading my pedaling pressure and cadence. It feels like it's like, oh, we're going, let's go. Kind of like a cadence sensor does. And I feel like, at first I didn't know what I thought of that, but the more I rode it, it started feeling like the nice balance between a cadence sensor and a torque sensor. Because when you want to have a more relaxed, natural pedaling feel, not go as fast, you get a bike with a torque sensor that pedals nice and naturally. But when you want to go fast and you just want immediate power, a cadence sensor makes more sense. So saving that cadence sensor style programming to where you get most of the power as soon as you rotate the wheels on boost mode, it makes it feel like you're getting the best of both worlds. Although it's strictly a torque sensor on both ends, it just feels different, like different programming on the low end versus the high end. Hopefully that makes sense. So I noticed when we went up that little punchy hill right behind me that we just came up, that's a 9% grade, even though it doesn't look like it on camera. There's a sign back there that even says it. And I felt this slow down a little bit. So let's go up this longer hill. Now this only has 60 Newton meters of torque, so I don't expect it to be some hill climbing beast, but it's also a lightweight bike, roughly 50 pounds. So I expect with 60 Newton meters and peaking at 1,000 watts, we should be fine on hills, but we'll find out. Let's go to, we're in turbo mode. Let's keep it in turbo. We got one more, we got boost we could do, but let's just see how this does. So we're accelerating, kind of holding 17, No, we're accelerating. Now we're up at 18, but it's not quite crushing it. So let's go to turbo mode. And now we're accelerating up into the 20s. The bike's max speed is 25. So if you see it top out there, that's why. So not really accelerating. I'm pedaling, putting in some good effort. The bike's in turbo mode. It is slowly accelerating, but it's not crushing the hill like a... In fact, we're back down to 23, 22, and I'm pedaling. I'm putting in good pressure here. I mean, you can, I don't know if you can see my knees on camera. So, with plenty of effort on my end, and in the highest pedal assist mode turbo, it goes up the hill, it holds over 20 miles an hour, but I couldn't max it out. I couldn't stay pegged to that 25 mile an hour max. So it's gonna be good for your average elevation. If you live on Lombard Street in San Francisco and you're doing 15+% grades consistently, this may not be the best choice. But for cruising around most towns like this, with just rolling hills, it's great. Let's get back up to speed and feel these brakes. One thing I will say is the motor and the bike is basically silent. I don't say silent often, but this one feels silent. So we're about 20, according to the speedometer on the bike, it's 24, 23. So we're about 23 miles an hour. We'll hit the brakes, 3, 2, 1. So nice controlled stopping power, kind of like I expected. You know, hydraulic disc brakes on a 50-pound bike. It just makes sense. You don't need to beef up braking or anything like that on a bike like this. 2 piston calipers with 180 millimeter rotors. That's all you need to get really nice braking on a 50-pound bike. Now, if this was 80 pounds, 90 pounds, like some of the big fat tires, I'd want to see something beefier, but for this build, it makes a lot of sense. And it performs really well. They're quiet, they're smooth, they have some modulation in them. You have adjustable pulls on the handles, so you could actually adjust how far out those levers are. So based on basically your hand size, if you have longer fingers, you could push them out a little bit. If you have shorter fingers, you could bring them in a little bit, and it won't affect the braking. It'll just make it more comfortable for you to rest your hands on and use just more naturally without thinking so much about it. So right now I have the range extender installed that came with it. They sent us, it's optional. They say it takes the range out to about 120 miles. But if I didn't have this range extender and I just bought it like many of you will, but what you have there is mounting points for a bottle cage, so like a water bottle or maybe a tool accessory kit. If you want to put it there, you do have those options as well. All in all, it's a really smooth, really quiet, it's just kind of a fun, easy bike to ride. It's comfortable, it's quiet, smooth. It's got everything you need for kind of getting around, from front to back lighting, fenders, rear rack. But it's not so heavy that you need, you know, to hire some movers just to get it in the back of your truck. It's still manageable weight, which is a really nice feature these days on a full-size bike, e-bike at least. But all in all, I kind of enjoy riding this one. The step-through J-frame has a low step-through height. Makes it easier to get on and get off. The acceleration when you're on these flats, it's like pretty darn good. I mean, I'm not pedaling super hard, I'm just kind of going, and we're already getting to that max of 25. Yeah, there it is. So plenty of power on flats, plenty power on mild inclines, but just remember, on steep inclines, this one will not lag, but it won't be, you know, maxing out speed numbers going uphill, which I don't think it's designed to do. I think that's just a fair way to give a city commuter bike. Let's go back, put it up on a stand, because this is a unique build, so there may be some things to consider from a maintenance standpoint, longevity, servicing, things like that. So let's go back and talk about that. All right, guys, let's talk about this from less of a review standpoint and more of a ownership and servicing standpoint. What are the things that are gonna kind of come into play when you want to get this serviced? Are there any unforeseen headaches coming your way? That's the kind of stuff we try to talk about here. We go both good and bad qualities, or things that we'd like improved. I'm gonna start with some of the things I like on here that just make the bike that much better of a build. First things first are going to be the through axle support on this front fork. We're not using a flimsy quick release lever, and we don't have a bolted axle that requires a bunch of extra tools if you're on the side of the road. A through axle, you simply stick an Allen key that's available on most bike little folding tools, and you can pop that front tire off in just a couple seconds. And same with putting it back on. That through axle is a nice solid contact point and makes removing and reattaching the front wheel that much easier and quicker. On top of that, the bike's overall lightweight build just makes it easier to use and navigate with. Put it upstairs, downstairs, put it in storage, put it in a truck, put it on a bike rack. You don't need an extra new special bike rack for this bike. Most bike racks can hold up to 50 pounds. So it's just an easy to work with bike on day-to-day life. Some people like the big, cool, fat tires and trikes, but sometimes those are north of 90, even 100 pounds, and it's not that easy to just live with those on a day-to-day basis. This one's gonna be a lot easier to work with. Now on top of that, now let's talk about some of the things I would improve. So first things first, on the derailleur here, there's no kind of clutch or chain retention system on it, so the chain can slap around if you hit any unvaried terrain, which as you can see dips down and touches that carbon fiber finish over time. I would add a piece of protection here. You can get them on Amazon for a couple bucks. They're not expensive, but that will go a long way in protecting this chainstay and ultimately the paint finish on top of that carbon fiber, because over time you will dig into that carbon and paint and kind of chew away at that if you hit a lot of rougher terrain or go over curbs, speed bumps, cobblestone, things like that. On top of that, let's talk about the last thing that I would just caution you on. And it's not so much a caution, it's more of a just FYI type situation. All the cables here go off the controls into our headset, then routed through the headset down into the frame, and then down to their final destination, including all the way back to the back tire for like shift cables and brake cables. Now, on one hand, it keeps everything nice and clean. You don't have cables coming off of it and all bulky. It makes everything nice and sleek looking, but the downside is when you go to service or replace some of these parts. So maybe in 5 years, you need to get new brakes or brake lines or cable housing for your shifters, things like that. That's when the mechanics at your bike shop, or you, if you do your own maintenance, will have to kind of go to surgery on your bike. You got to kind of take all these parts off. You got to dig into the frame and get these cables and wires to come out. But for peace of mind, that's on almost all premium bikes. My personal road bikes and mountain bikes have headset routed cables. It's not like it's a negative of the bike. It's just something to be aware of when you go to service a bike, because that will mean your local bike shop mechanic will have to probably charge an extra hour or so for labor just to spend that extra time putting this all apart, getting to the parts they need, and then putting it all back together. Just take extra time when you have this headset routed setup, but it does give it a better overall look. So it's kind of a pro-con type thing, just depending on how you look at it. Other than that, the bike is well done, lightweight, easy to ride, all Shimano components, Tektro brakes, easy to replace and service at your local bike shop. And really, that was it. All right, guys, so there you have it, the Urtopia Carbon Fusion Pro, a pretty cool e-bike coming in at basically 50 pounds, or if you take the fenders and rack off, under 50 pounds. Easy to put on most bike racks, easy to lift around and store, get upstairs. Versus the more traditional stuff that we see, the fat tires, that 70, 80, even pushing north of 100 pounds sometimes. It's just kind of refreshing to ride a lightweight, easy to ride bike. It's fun to ride, it's very smooth, very quiet, and I really did enjoy my time riding this bike. Now, if you have any questions about it, drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you so you have that information. And until the next review comes out, I'll see you out on the trail.